I think location will be integrated into almost everything we do. I think the challenge there
And
is
in what ways?
well, I think,
And
for
how do you see it
example,
as being helpful for users?
I think if you look at some of the things that we're doing today, like with Google Maps, where you're able to see your location, you're able, with latitude, to know where your friends or family are. If you look at things like Buzz, where you're able to post a comment and then snap that to a particular place. Those are two examples of things that we're shipping now. But I think you're going to see virtually all the software we do, with the user's consent and permission, be location enabled.
Do you see that as becoming then a greater rival, more direct competitor to Foursquare, your fellow panelist Dennis Crowley?
I think Dennis has done a great job, and I think it's not necessarily about competing with Dennis. I think as these devices become more capable and they become more aware of your location, then the software can take advantage of that location to do all sorts of exciting things. One of the examples that Chris used on stage, which I thought was really great, is when you're at the airport. Shouldn't your phone know that you're at the airport and give you, for example, the boarding gate? If you're at a venue, shouldn't it know what event's going on and alert you with useful information? And so I think location is going to become something that the operating system supports, like it does on the iPhone and Android today. And we're going to do it with better battery usage, more accuracy, and we really can't even foretell or predict the kind of innovative applications that developers will build as we put this capability into the platform.
This is a really crowded market when we're talking about geo-based services. And there's Foursquare, there's Gowalla, there's Google, there's everyone offering their own suite of features. But do you think that it has to be somewhat limited? Like eventually that a lot of these that are coming out just now will have to drop because there is only a certain amount that a user can use, right? You don't want to be checking into 8 different applications, and why would you need 8 different applications?
Well, I think you're right about it being early, and it's very competitive right now. There's lots of people with great ideas. I think the market will naturally segment. There's some people who want to check in and who love the game dynamics, and they'll use those kinds of apps. There are other people who may want much more of a passive model, where the phone just contextually gives them relevant information, and it's less about the game dynamics. And who knows, there'll be people with all sorts of creative new ideas. We just talked about one, these kind of flash mobs, where you can determine that you're interested in a topic and find other people around you who are interested in the same topic. So I think it's too early to call which one of these scenarios is going to win out, or which company will have a leading product. I just know it's an incredibly exciting time right now, and there's so many great ideas being surfaced because of the new capabilities that are available in these phones.
Do you have any specific thoughts on Scavenger, which is another geo-based service, but that has somewhat of a Google connection because Google Ventures had invested in Scavenger earlier this year? Are there some features in that you would like to integrate into Google or fold into the model?
I think that's exactly an example of what we just talked about.
Yeah.
Lots of innovative ideas. In some cases, Google will help with funding. In other cases, we're building similar products. But I think the key point is that we're early. We'll be surprised by what people build. And some of these will become so widely adopted that in the future we'll wonder how we ever lived without that capability.
Now, what do you think was the most interesting statement by either Dennis, Chris, or Mike on stage today, or even someone in the audience? Something that made you go, huh, that's interesting, I want to think about that.
Boy, that's a really good question. I think one of the questions from the audience highlights a tension that even at Google, it's something we think about. And that was the question about what do you do about countries where the predominant computing device is the mobile phone, and that mobile phone today is very, very limited. SMS, just a phone. It has not yet become a smartphone. When does that transition happen? How fast does it happen? And how do you best take advantage of that? And I think that's a question we continue to evaluate at Google. And I think anyone who's building these kinds of innovative services has to think about these emerging markets where the mobile phone is often the primary device.
It might be a very long time. I mean, with a lot of these emerging markets, of course, still with a strong, heavy population of people, underneath the poverty line, they may have a phone, but not much else, right? And that phone is going to be very bare bones, even less than what Mike has right now.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting question. How will that play out? You laid out one scenario. There's another scenario that says these phones are going to continue to drop in price, and we're going to see adoption worldwide in probably a way that some of us are underestimating. Certainly if you think about the original iPhone and you think about it costing almost $600 and what that class of device costs today, about $100. That's a huge price drop in 2 years. If you extrapolate that out over the next couple of years, it's not too much of a stretch to believe that these phones, the primary computing device in some of these countries, is going to be very affordable.
Yeah, at the cost of margins for the providers,
Yeah.
of course. Now shifting on to Google I/O, which was a great conference. I was there in the audience as you gave your presentation on Thursday. It was fascinating to see Google TV and all the offerings that you had for the next version of Android. But what a lot of people were talking about was Apple versus Google. Why do you think that message was articulated in that way? I mean, how do you describe your relationship to Apple? And was it your idea to put in that many jabs into it?
Well, it was my speech, so I
Yeah.
have to take responsibility. And it wasn't necessarily jabs at Apple. We have a deep respect for the innovation they brought. And places where Android has gone further, we're very excited to show those off. We're very proud of Android. And I think in the end, consumers really benefit from healthy, intense competition. That leads all companies to elevate their game. And it was done in a spirit of good fun. I think the audience laughed at
So
all
it was
those.
more in good fun than actual swipes or jabs. I mean,
Yeah.
you say they're not jabs, but they were. You were obviously being very, very clear about, Apple is closed, Google is open. I think that was a message that everyone took away.
Yeah, but we do like to draw sharp distinctions between our various approaches. But let's be clear, we're two competitors competing for the hearts and minds of developers, and we're trying to have some fun while we do that.
Now, do you think that Apple will become more open? I mean, obviously you work at Google, but do you think that's inevitable because there has been this backlash, or do you see this backlash as somewhat fizzling out in the developer community?
I can't predict what Apple will do. As I said, we have deep respect for them as a competitor. They got that way because they tend to listen to feedback. And so I would fully expect Apple to adjust to market dynamics.
So that means they probably will, or they should. They should. Okay, now moving on to my next point, Google TV, and this will be my last topic before we head out. But Google TV, how do you see it as transforming the user experience in terms of computer, internet, plus TV? Is this something that is really going to change the way we think about TV? Do you see that as being, so popular among the U.S. public, and even 5-10 years out when it becomes more affordable and easy to adopt, or how do you see it as changing the game?
Well, obviously we have very high hopes for that platform. We think there's a number of scenarios that we can make better. Even just the TV itself today, I've got so many channels. Sometimes just finding the show I want to watch, can be a challenge. And being able now simply on the television to say Lost, Modern Family, The Lakers, and have instantly that brought up. Just like what you love about Google on the web, we're bringing that right to television. And then being able to integrate multiple sources so that if I missed an episode, and I didn't DVR it, it's very simple to go have an interface that tells me exactly where it is from any source on the net and instantly hit play. And then the other thing about Google Television is its open nature as a platform to support applications. And so I love, for example, Pandora on my Android phone. And now being able to run that same Pandora app on my television where I have some of the best speakers in my home, I think that's a great thing.
Do you see that all this media and internet will become available wherever you go? That all of the services Google TV will provide will then be translated into another device, perhaps a Google Pad of some sort?
I think we're going to have lots of digital devices, and they're going to come in a variety of form factors. I think the key thing then becomes is how do you manage all these devices? If you've got a form factor that's small, maybe a medium form factor, you've got other devices in the home that are larger, you really want a simple way for all those devices to recognize who you are and have your applications and your content seamlessly move between all of them. And I think solving that challenge is something that we're working very, very hard on, and we'll see how consumers react to our products.
Do you plan to aggressively tackle that market, the tablet market?
Well, we have not announced plans for a tablet. There are those who take an Android and put them on tablets. But we're watching the space closely and doing some interesting work that we'll talk about in the future.
Great. We look forward to hearing about
Great.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.